All right, guys, and welcome to another podcast by Hyperverse and Mr. Mishu. Today, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 2, Half-Life Alyx? I don't know how exactly you're supposed to say it. I'm just going to say Alyx. And Animal Crossing New Horizons. All games of which are coming out very soon. Actually, Animal Crossing should be out in what? 4 days?
6 days.
6 days.
5 days. 5 days. Sorry.
5 days, 5 days. Also, happy birthday to Hyperverse because yesterday was his birthday.
Yay.
So leave him a comment down below saying that you love him.
Or that you hate me. That's sometimes those are funny.
But before we get started in on the new video games, we did have an interesting look at our podcast from last time, and I'm gonna butcher this name, but I'm gonna say it's Manarath left us an interesting point of view on what we were talking about with Predator hunting grounds. I specifically said I have to disagree with the notion that the Predator should be near invincible up to a point. That somewhat goes against the movies and lore. They hunt the most dangerous prey, and they can't find not just an hold on, I'm reading this all wrong. They hunt the most dangerous prey, and they can find, not just indiscriminately kill whatever. And as the movie's shown, it is not because they're immune to weapons that make them so dangerous, but their physical might mixed with their cunning and tech combined. Had Arnold's team managed to focus fire the Predator at the start, it would have been gunned down instantly. Hell, the minigun would have torn the Predator apart, but its cloak and its agility allowed it to escape mostly unharmed when anybody tried to shoot it. If they made it so the human players could only stun the Predator until the end, while it might be good for gameplay mechanics, it would not fit the lore of the Predator's films and comics. The Predator is not some undead creature that Jason or in some hellscape like in Dead by Daylight. It's a living, breathing creature that can die like anything else. It would not hunt these people unless they could potentially kill it. Of which I fully agree that is a very strong point, but you did make a comment in there that specifically said good for gameplay mechanics, and that is a big feature or factor into creating something along that lines. If you make it to where the alien itself is overpowered, then people will flock to playing the alien, and the human players will, not the alien, the Predator. It is an alien, but if you make the Predator too overpowered and you don't balance it with the humans in some way, shape, or fashion, then it's going to make it to where people flock to playing the Predator, and the humans get screwed over in the end. Yeah. I do agree that it doesn't play to the lore entirely, except for it kind of does, because the Predator never dies or does anything really significant except for an AVP, which I did mention this in my reply comment to him. Except for an AVP, which is Alien versus Predator for the unknowing out there, the Predator doesn't die until the end of the game or the movie. So, it's an alpha hunter, so that does make sense in the fact. Being able to stun the Predator, okay, maybe have it to where it's set up on like an auto retreat function or something along those lines where, the Predator is forced to run away to a safe haven, or give him some like immunity frames or something just for a little bit so he can get away, to make it to where there's a constant threat, not something that can just be killed right off the bat and then you just walk through the rest of the level. So I do agree with you that, it doesn't really match the lore too well, but you have to be able to balance it somehow to where it's not going to be A or B, whereas being the players die immediately, or the humans die immediately, or the Predator dies immediately. You can't have that. You have to have that constant threat, or the game will lose its luster. And then I, replied and I asked specifically, it's like, okay, do you agree with our rating? Because that's what we're here for, is we're here to discuss our ratings with it. We suggest gameplay sources and things like that because we have ideas that we'd want to push out there. But I did reply and I said, okay, well, do you agree with our rating that the game is going to be garbage? And of course, there was a no there. So long as it's not a buggy mess, I don't think it will be garbage. There's a lot of things for what I pieced together that's that lets it hold its own. I cannot read today. The fact the maps are so big, the fact the fire team can control what part of the map they start in, and the predator has no idea where they can start out at. Then the fact that the predator can tell them apart from the NPCs running around besides their actions and help from its vision mode, which they can screw with thanks to putting on mud for a time, so long as it's easier to complete the objectives than hunting down the predator, provided it is a skilled predator and not just trying to melee the entire team. Then I think it will be fine. So long as they can beat the predator if they are skilled, then it's fine. And chances are the fire team will get some form of respawn in the form of reinforcements within a time frame to make up for the predator's own strengths. Now, this actually brings up my other point. There are a lot of ifs involved in that statement. So, and that's exactly what we were trying to talk about in the last one. There are so many ifs that come up with this game because games have tried to model this before and they've failed. There's a lot of ifs that they have to hit to be able to get to that point where it is going to be a good game. And with that amount of ifs in it, I can't say that it's going to be a good game. There's just too much if involved. So that's my opinion on it. What did you think after reviewing the comments?
So after what they were saying, I get exactly what they're saying. Like I know it's not the exact same. It makes sense that the predators are doing this because it is a challenge, because they're trying to prove that, hey, I can do this. Like I'm going out after these huge targets that are lethal and crazy and huge and whatever. And for that, it makes sense. If they were able to balance it in such a way to keep with like the exact lore where they're armored and they have a bit of health like a creature, like a living thing. Yeah, sure, it could work.
Yeah, and I agree.
I just don't know exactly what they would do to make sure of that balance.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And I agree with what he says. It really doesn't match the lore, but this game really doesn't match the lore in the first place. Your objective is to go into the woods and run away from the predator. Like it's not like you're a fire team that stumbled upon an area and the predator caught you and started trying to chase you down. No, you're hot dropping into an area and you're 100% setting yourself up to be chased by the predator while you're trying to complete these things. That's why it's like, okay, it doesn't really follow the lore anyway. So
yeah, it's like the predator just happens to show up, but it's in this game we always expect a predator. It's a human player.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong. I see where he's coming from, and we do evaluate everybody. So shout out to Manarith, if I'm saying that right. I hope I am, but like there's a whole lot of things that go involved with this. Like that's just too many ifs for me to say. And we did look into all that, and the skill of the player does determine the gameplay quality as well in these situations. So we're playing it easily with that, garbage rating, but there was just too many ifs for us to rate it a game, like, to be honest with you. So, all right. But that'll segue us in. We're going to go ahead and move, thank you for the comment. We do appreciate it. We do like the debate. But I'm still going to be able to stick with my garbage. I'm not swayed very easily. I'm fairly tight on my opinion. But with that being said, we're going to move right into Animal Crossing New Horizons, of which I am not a huge Animal Crossing player. I've never played a single one, so I will let Hyperverse lead us off with this one because this is his area of expertise, not mine.
Yes. So Animal Crossing has had I don't actually know the number, 4 or 5 different iterations, and every time they have drastically improved on what you can do. The point of this game is you're the only human that got dropped into this animal world. So they're like store clerks, villagers. They're all animals, different animals. And it's one of those games where, if you got some downtime, the there are some little challenges you can do that it's hard to explain. It's minor uh, improvements on your current situation. So like you're dropped into this like tent or this little like shack, and then you can upgrade it, but then you have a loan that you have to pay off, and you can do these little things like you can make friends and they can give you presents. Uh, invite actual other people into your town so you can go see their town, and they have a whole system like fruits. I mean, the way you start a town, your fruit is like assigned to you, and then when you get other fruit, a foreign fruit, it sells for more. So there's like an actual kind of smart economy, and they just blew that out of the water by having everything I just said and then adding on top of that like so much more customization that they've just given us, and it's insane. Everyone is going crazy waiting for this game.
Yeah, I was reading in on it, and they're pitching some pretty interesting things about it, like the weather system and everything else being based on your physical location and the actual world, things like
Yeah.
that, and then like it's all played in real time because real time is an interesting concept. If you've ever played Eve online, then you would understand that real time is kind of grueling sometimes, but it does have a significant payoff, especially when you have something that's going to take 28 days, and 28 days later it's actually done, and you're like, finally, I get to press on. But yeah, but I mean, I do like the idea that they're introducing a real time strategy. But what really caught my attention was the game's weather will adjust to the seasons of the northern and southern hemispheres depending on the player's real world location. That was interesting to me because,
Yeah.
like, from what I understand, is farming, if I'm not wrong, is a part of this game.
Kind of. It's with
Like,
the fruits and flowers. I know you can kind of farm because you can make hybrids by leaving them near each other, and then there's a chance that the next day it'll hybrid together, and you'll get like a red and a yellow, like rose will make an orange one. So
okay,
like
yeah,
that's the only
so
like real farming.
okay, but what would the big impact be of it adjusting the weather towards where you actually physically live? What would be the benefit of that?
Uh, Generally, the weather is like all the seasons. It'll change what type of insects or fish or whatever are out at that time.
Okay, so it is going to create a detrimental change if you're in the middle of winter because then you
Right.
you won't be
You'll
able to
only
get.
have certain things, and you have like a catalog to fill of like you have a museum, I guess. So you can put things in the museum, and it'll give you an idea of what things are still missing. It's like a completion kind of game.
Okay, okay, so that's legit because I mean, with real time plus that involved, it's going to actually create like this. Oh, it's now winter time. I need to focus on getting XYZ, or I'm not going to be able to get it for another
Right.
year. That
Exactly.
that
Or yeah, you can even have more saved up and then give it to a friend, like physically hand it to them. So it's possible. Like they've even added more designing features. So it used to be like, oh, there are these cool sets of furniture that I can get. And the way that the stores work, in the beginning, you have like two pieces of furniture you can pick from. And then as the store upgrades, you have like two or three more, and then like a huge catalog. And then you can like order, like if you've ever picked it up, even from a friend, and then give it back to them, it's in your catalog and you can order it, and the next day it'll be shipped to you. But now you can even customize the furniture and like change the pillows on a furniture to something you just designed, and it's blowing my mind that they're giving us all of this.
so I mean, Animal Crossing is. I never started playing it because it just never really piqued my interest. It was one of those like, oh, okay, this is kind of just like a little cool like cartoony game where you get to basically micromanage a town and things like that. And you have minimal influences to where like new people coming into your town or your village or whatever you want to call it. You don't have really any influences where they build their houses and things like that, which I think is cool because it creates more of a living atmosphere. You can a little bit, but not a whole lot, and it creates a cool little atmosphere, like an actual living village, not just a okay. I put a building here, you live here now. They pick where they want to choose based off of randomness, I'm assuming, and then that that to me was actually a pretty cool concept.
So
But
in previous games, there were these lots that were designated for new villagers to move into. There's like this little picket fence, or like a sign,
mhm.
and you just knew that's a spot designated for a new villager. And I think they still have that, but I believe you now kind of get a say in where they move. And even if you don't, uh, you can literally customize the land of everything. You can make a river. You can because there's like other tiers, like a higher, like 3 feet higher, like ledge you can get up with a ramp. So when you get to that point, it's not going to be immediately, but you can physically customize the world around wherever villagers are, wherever your building, the like shops are. It's not like you're stuck with something. You
Right.
can always modify it, and now so even more than before.
Right. And I mean they are including, player customization and things like that. So I mean they do allow you to decorate the like your furniture and things like that. The game will also allow you to change your appearance, your physical appearance in the game. You have 4-person co-op, 8-person online, which I actually thought was pretty cool that they were including a local play into this as well. But
Yeah.
my thing is like you have an ability to where you can influence where the animal will construct their home, but but it's not guaranteed. Like you can be like, hey, right there is a really nice spot. Yeah, look at that one. Yeah, but they're not gonna be like, yeah, well, I like this one and build there anyway. You know what I mean? So it's you do have the influence. You can try to change it, but it's not a guarantee. And I actually really like that because, like I said, it does make it more like a living community rather than a uh, set in stone. You're gonna live here. That's all there is to it. Kind of like if you think about like Minecraft villagers.
Yeah.
They just kind of do whatever they want, and if you convert or if you save a infected villager, they will take on a role that you can influence, but you cannot actually dictate. And it's cool, and I think that's a really cool idea. Which I didn't know if you knew that about Minecraft, but you can do that.
Yeah, I know it was one of the newer, more recent things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's actually a really cool concept. And from what I was reading, is they've got a really good formula to keep the player interest involved throughout the entire year, not just in small spurts.
Yes, there's
So,
always something that you could be doing. Like there's these little tiny things that you can do as like daily chores, I guess. In the previous game, you could like shake the trees, like the barren trees in your village, and like 3 of them every day could drop a piece of furniture. I don't know fully how that works, but it was just a thing that everyone knew. And then there was a quote unquote money rock. You hit every rock in your village, and one of them every day will spit out money. It's I don't really know where this came from or why. I just knew it was a thing. And they have like fishing contests. The black market like salesman guy who sometimes give you like authentic non-forged like paintings and art, but that's for your museum, of course. So there's like always something kind of wandering around your village, like a random visitor for the day. They've even had one character will be in your village, and the like it's like a baby character looking for its mom, and it'll say whose village that you have to go to let them meet up again to find his mom. And I've had to do it with my sister in her game. I'm like, hey, I got the kid here, and he says the mom's in your town. So I went over there, and then you saw the kid run through the gate. It's just little things like that. There's always like some little thing beyond what you want to do that you can do.
I mean, it might be a game that I actually come into the actual series with. I mean, I'll be missing out on some of the characters that they're bringing over. the Isabella and the Mr. Rossetti. I don't know
Yeah.
who they are. I
Yeah.
don't know their importance or anything like that. So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I'm so excited to meet them, but I have no idea. But it's just one of those things where it's just from what I was reading, their formula seems like it's pretty set in stone, and it's actually a pretty good formula. And I mean, they've gotten wild success from the previous Animal Crossing games. That
Yeah.
I can't say that they're doing something bad, and it doesn't look like they're changing anything. They're just adding to what is already a good foundation.
Exactly. I believe any previous furniture sets that people are in love with that were like, oh, I love this one so much, I always want to collect all the pieces. I think they just add more sets. And now they added the customization on top of that. So I can just tweak the currently existing favorite sets that are out there. And like, it's just crazy how all of this works. Like, your village is going to have different furniture for sale than my village. And you might not want it, but I might, so I can go to your village and buy it, or buy it from you.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
I did see some negative things about it. I mean, they're not super hardcore, and I'm not a Switch player, so I'm not really affected by this in any way, shape, or form. I am PlayStation 4 and PC. That's all I play games on. I don't have any handheld like games besides my phone. But the one thing I did see that was negative, but they are rectifying it already, is that the game doesn't support the Nintendo Switch online cloud saves, which
Oh
they
yeah,
which
yeah. That's I hate that.
yeah. So if you buy the game immediately as release, it will have that negative impact because you won't be able to do anything. But they will allow you to, for online players only, they will allow you to recover your data if your Switch were to get stolen, broken, or lost. So it's not super detrimental, and I mean that's really the only negative thing that I saw about it. They have a solid time frame for the development cycle from 2018 to release of 2020. They did have to push it back once, which they shouldn't now because they would definitely have had to release something by now saying that they're going to push it back. But as far as it goes, like the development team has got a very solid, foundation underneath them. They're basing it off of the old games. They're bringing in mechanics that they played with other games in the series, and they're kind of just tying it all together and making a very good, solid game. So, based off of what I've learned from the game and everything that it has, I would definitely have to rate this game an actual game because it's based off of a solid foundation. It's based and they're expanding on what they already have that's working. They're not changing it. So they're keeping in all the good stuff and they're just adding more good stuff to it. And
The
I
only they did like make slight changes. In this one, they've added crafting. We've never
yes,
had
that's
crafting before, but
see, I
it's
didn't
not.
know
We
that.
didn't lose anything.
Yeah,
It's just we already collected things before, and now we have a use for all those kind of useless items that we were just kind of picking up.
okay. Yeah, see, I didn't know that the crafting system wasn't involved before. So that's actually going to open it up though because with the crafting, I'm assuming that it's going to tie heavily into the market of everything because you're going to be able to craft items at certain using certain ingredients that other people can't get a hold of that you can sell.
Oh, probably yeah. Like if
So
they have rare gems they had in a previous game, uh, and I can't find that one sapphire or whatever, I could probably just find it from one of my friends.
and see, that's what I'm talking about though. That's going to be an expansion on what they already have, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
That's just a bonus. They're building on a system where they're like, okay, we're going to make this a full thriving world, not just you play your village and then you might get somebody buying something from now every now and again. And with them, changing up the weather, they also said that they added wind to it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know the
I,
exact significance behind that, but they did say that they were adding wind to it. So cool. I like
yeah.
environmental mechanics. That's nice.
I
So
think it's mostly going to be a subtle kind of visual thing, but there is kind of important to the series. There have always been these presents in the sky floating with a balloon that you can shoot down with a slingshot, and it can be like a random item or a special set that you can only find from these random presents. and the wind may actually play a part in trying to shoot those down.
Well, that would be actually, that just makes sense at that point. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, from what I can see and what I've read and everything that I'm catching up on it about is it seems like they've actually got a very solid game here, and it's not like it's an unknown title. Animal Crossing has been around for years. I think the first Animal Crossing released on the 3DS.
No, on the GameCube.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm so far behind in the series. So it released on the GameCube. That is a huge series. It's
Yeah.
tracking just as far back as what Resident Evil does and things like that. So yeah, it's got a very solid foundation to build on, and it's not changing things so drastically that it's going to make people deterred or hate the game. They're just expanding and increasing the playability of everything rather than changing everything. And I do like that. Now it does bring in the question of this: is it going to be too similar? Because uh, you know certain mechanics outlive their lifetime, and people see it all the time. Like the whole punch tree get wood, that is so overused and so abused that it's one of those mechanics where it's just like, okay, this is kind of stupid. And
Yeah, I can see that.
it just gets to the point where people are like, okay, I'm bored of doing the same thing over and over and over again. Can we please change it up to where I'm not, cookie cutter? And I mean, I agree with what they're saying, and I agree with what they're doing. I think that they need to keep expanding the foundation that they've already built. Why live in a hut when you can live in a mansion, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that does pose the question of, are these things that they're doing and working through going to cause more of a, like, I'm not even going to say like it's going to be a bad thing, but are they going to get boring after a while?
Yeah.
Is the foundation that they've built going to have enough to where they can actually continue building from that point rather than creating something completely new? Say, hey, Animal Crossing, but aliens. I understand. Like, I know that's a little extreme, but throw something extravagant in there to make it to
actually there's a UFO
well, so,
that
yeah,
you can shoot down.
that's okay. Well, I'm not that far off from the mark, but
Yeah.
but it is one of those things where it's, do they need to do that now? Probably not. From what I'm reading, is it sounds like they've got a very interesting game in the works, and they're going to, you know, constantly be expanding that, and that's good. I like that. But eventually, they're going to come to a point where they have to do something extravagant to keep that player interest there, because the formula is going to get tired after a while.
Right. And why would I pick this up for like 3 other new additions?
Exactly. And that, I'm not saying change the whole formula, but they definitely need to add something. Like adding farming would probably be a good idea. Because without farming, you're not going to be able to, it would add to the game itself, but it's not an exact necessity.
I mean, it would be interesting if they added like a town like vegetable, because we already have the town fruit, which we plant the tree and then it does its own thing. But that could be interesting.
Yeah, don't do like Farmville. Don't do that kind of farming. That
No,
farming
not
was stupid.
very micromanagey, but
Yeah.
like you could influence it and it would be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, that'd be great. Like if you could actually, like, instead of making it to where you have to plant two things right beside each other, maybe you could actually get into like a scientific animal farming. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's the path that they need to take, because I don't know. I've never played the games, but it's something that they could add into it that would make it to where you have to learn something completely new that wouldn't detract from everything else. And if you could get into like gene splicing and things like that inside of the game, obviously not physically doing it yourself, but make that something that gives you the ability to do that, and you could plant these extravagant, really unique things that you could sell on the market, use for different things, yada 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 yada. The list goes on and on. But that might be something that they're going to need soon, because I don't even know how many Animal Crossing games there are out right now, but I know there's not a little amount of Animal Crossing games. But again, That's one of those things where if you disagree with what I'm saying, leave it in the comments because you can even tag me out specifically and say, "Hey, at Mr. Mishu, you're an idiot." I'm good with that. the just That's fine, and I'll argue my point. You argue your point. We'll go on with life. But I think that they're gonna need that change soon. So maybe like in the next rendition of the Animal Crossing series, I think they're going to need that change because some of these mechanics have been around since the beginning. And it's going to
Yeah.
it's just going to be mechanic fatigue. It's just like anything. It's going to need constant upkeep and, changes and things like that. It's like a machine. You can't run a machine for 30 years and expect it to continue to run at optimal performance. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. I think the game is definitely ready to game, but the game's mechanics are going to start getting worn out really soon.
Yeah,
And
I don't know how many more renditions that they're going for. I kind of didn't expect another Animal Crossing.
right,
But
and I mean, but do you ever expect to see another Mario?
yes.
That's my point. And Mario is so overused and overdone that it's like if you look at some of the later installments, you're like, cool, but look at what they did with it though. They changed it completely. I don't
Yes.
it's not just the 2D side scroller. It went from a 2D side scroller to a 3D world where you can travel and jump through paintings
Yeah.
to
They brought
throwing.
back like Mario Sunshine and
Yeah,
Mario 64 elements, and
yeah,
then the
and
hat.
yeah, the hat. That's what I was about to say. But then they added something completely new to it that revitalized the series, and that's something that I think that they're going to need to do with Animal Crossing, and they may have done it with this one. I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
like I said, I've never played them before, so if they're adding something completely new to it, I wouldn't even know if I started playing because they would all be new mechanics to me. And I feel that it's one of those things where if they're not doing that, they're going to have to start because people are going to start falling off of the train. Because if you would have played Mario in today's age as a 2D side scroller, I don't think it would have survived nearly as long as what it has.
Yeah. It was the best at the time.
Yeah, and now it's still a fantastic game because of what they're doing with the changes and things like that. Some of them not so good. Let's just be honest here. Some changes that they've done are not so good, but they're trying. And
Yeah.
that's the whole business of game design and development is I think this will work. It has good mechanics, it plays really well, and then you put it out there and everybody hates it. You got to quickly get to the drawing board and change things so you don't tank. And that's the entire game development industry. So I hope that they're pushing towards it, and I'm going to rate this one a game. Hyperverse, what are you rating it as? I'm assuming because you're a fanboy. It's
Definitely game.
Yeah. So this one is going to be a game. I'm not exactly hesitant on it. They have a good base and good platform. So that one is definitely a game. Is there anything else that you want to add about it that people may not know about or have not read about that you know?
Not really. It's mainly just what I've said, like, or what we've said. Just they've added on to the foundation. They haven't changed too drastically from their current formula, and
Right.
so far it's been a good thing. But
Now,
uh,
now, don't take us saying that they need to make changes, you know, a a direct contradiction of what we said last week with Predator. That's a completely different situation. That one has not had a chance for the mechanics to be overused or outlived. There was no need for a drastic change in that line of video games. That one specifically is a new baby game. The mechanics that they're offering for that one were introduced and then they've not been around for very long. That gameplay style has not been around for very long. This one is a completely different situation where this Animal Crossing has been around for a long time. These mechanics that they have, yes, keep them, but add to them, add to the levels, increase things. I'm not saying change the whole formula because again, that's what we were trying to key on last week is that at Predator, they're trying to change a massive part of the formula that is going to end up being bad. Whereas this one is different. These mechanics have been around forever. These gameplays have been around forever. So the mechanic fatigue is going to be a thing. And we want them to keep what they have, just add to them, not take something and change it so bad that it changes the entire way that the game is played, because I don't buy the game unless I like the way it plays. And that's what I'm trying to get at here is I'm not this is something completely different than Predator, because I already know somebody's going to be out there and going to be like, "Oh, you said last week that they shouldn't change formulas and, mechanics because of XYZ." And I'll be like, "Well," and I'll be having the same argument. But that is a completely different situation. Those mechanics and that gameplay style haven't been around long enough for it to actually get fatigued. It's a new-ish idea. Let's just put it that way. And this one has been around long enough for where they can do drastic changes and people will still come to it. It's established its name. And then people will give feedback, and then the developers and Nintendo themselves will look at it and go, okay, they didn't like this. Back to the drawing board, and then they'll introduce a new change that will make it better. And they, obviously Nintendo's been around a long time. They know what they're doing, so they don't need a lesson from you, we old me. But yes, I just wanted to reiterate that this is a completely different situation than what Predator is. Predator is a game that is still new in its baby format and really hasn't had enough time to develop any kind of mechanic fatigue. But anyway, let's move on from that, and we'll move on to I don't even know, because both of these are heavy hitting games. We have The Last of Us Part 2 and we have Half-Life Alyx. Now, The Last of Us Part 2 is a very long discussion that I can have with anybody if they want to talk. I'm all right with that because I'm the Last of Us, fanboy. I played the original one for PlayStation 3, and then I played the remastered for PlayStation 4, and then I bought the Game of the Year edition because why not? And then Half-Life, I've played Half-Life 1 and 2 all the way through, and they're fantastic stories. So, Hyperverse, I'm going to go into your discretion as to which one we go to, because I could talk about both of these for hours.
Let's go with The Last of Us. I know less about The Last of Us.
Okay, so The Last of Us, everybody knows Ellie and Joel. So, The Last of Us Part 2, let's discuss this really quick. So, if you've been following any of the development of The Last of Us Part 2, there are some big changes in place here for the storyline's sake. Let's just talk about the fact that Joel has not shown any presence in any of the trailers that have released. I have not seen anything that's saying that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to have Joel in it. What I'm assuming is that he actually died, but, he was kind of an old man when they finished off, and, it's a survival world, so it's not going to be exactly easy. And let's not lie, Ellie put him through the ringers in The Last of Us. But let's just talk about The Last of Us Part 2. Because The Last of Us Part 2 is going to place you in the shoes of Ellie. The little girl from the beginning, but much older. And it's going to be hard to say if this game is going to be fantastic or not, because it's hard to follow up such a good game before. But they have had a lot of time to make sure that it is good. So they started production in, oh, by the way, the release date for The Last of Us Part 2 is May 29th, 2020, of which I will be playing that one on my channel, Mr. Mishu, the day that it releases. So me and the wife have already talked about it. So it is scheduled to release May 29th, 2020, but they started production in 2016 of December. So it's going to have the same basic crafting example or crafting style as what the original Last of Us had, where they're going to be, on the fly, find a broken pair of scissors and make a better object that has a blade on it. It's pretty simple. But let's just read some of the notes that they have for the development. Let me see if I can find them really quick. What did you read up on with The Last of Us Part 2? Did anything intrigue you, Hyperverse, or catch your eye?
I wanted to mention, just reading a little bit here, it's telling me that the first trailer of The Last of Us Part 2 showed us the return of Ellie and Joel. I don't
I never
personally know
saw
who Joel is.
I never saw Joel. That was the thing. Is like the first trailer. It was literally I never saw Joel. That's why I'm saying like if I'm wrong, please send me a link to the trailer and then tell me a time mark where you see Joel because I've not seen Joel. I'm assuming that Joel is dead.
It could
So,
be one of
well,
the first
okay.
things that
So
happens. Who
I
knows?
I might be wrong about him being dead. I might be wrong, but because Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are coming back, you know, to their roles as Joel and Ellie. Obviously, Troy Baker's Joel, and then Ashley Johnson is going to be Ellie. So maybe he is still alive. And they did maintain the same creative director and writer from The Last of Us, so that's good because that'll make sure that the story stays on track.
Yeah,
And
nice
then,
continuity.
it like I'm a little worn out today, so I might not show a lot of excitement, but I am extremely excited about playing The Last of Us 2. Yesterday I was digging holes to plant trees, so I'm a little worn out today. But so like the game is on the right track to maintain the story that they were developing in the first place. But if anybody hasn't played The Last of Us by now, I'm sorry, but there are going to be some spoilers in this one. So at the end of The Last of Us, Joel lied to Ellie, saying that they had found other people with the immunity to this disease or the virus, which I can't remember the exact name of the virus. I'm not a huge, I can't remember all that details, but they can't. She had an immunity, and he lied to her and said that they didn't. There was tons of people out there that had it, and they already created a vaccine. So is this going to keep track with their kind of mother daughter relationship or mother daughter father daughter relationship that they have from the first one and maintain it into the second one? Because I feel like the secret of the lie is going to come out like it always does, and it's going to cause this tension between the two of them where she either runs away or she resents him entirely, forced to live with him but resents him. And I think that'll be a good play or a good role, but it's kind of overused. Or is the facade going to be held up throughout this entire game? There's a whole lot of things that are coming into play here that could make this a good or a bad game, in my opinion. If they maintain the story as it is and they keep it to where she's oblivious to the fact that he lied in the beginning, and they continue on as this, father daughter relationship where they have quarrels every now and again or they argue every now and again, that's fine. I'm all right with that. That'll open it up for a third installment where it's going to be The Last of Us Part 3 or All of Us Part 3, one or the other. And it will make the game a lot more compelling to me because it'll give you the drive to figure out when it's all going to start to collapse. I'm not one for agreeing with, a good relationship falling apart, but as a storyline goes, they need to have that collapse. And if they don't show us that collapse, but instead of showing it to us, in a flashback, let us live it and experience, that will kind of dampen the gameplay for me because you got to be Joel in the beginning when his daughter actually died. You got to live that experience. You didn't it didn't just take it away from you, it lets you live it. It didn't just show it to you in some like flashback or something like that. You physically had to hold your daughter in your arms while she was dying. And that to me was extremely good storytelling progress. If they take that kind of storytelling progress and they put it into Ellie and Joel's relationship, then this game will be fantastic because let's be honest here, the gameplay mechanics are pretty simple. There is nothing really extravagant about it. You can craft, you can kill, you can stealth. They're all pretty cookie cutter mechanics. And of course, it's a disease outbreak or a viral outbreak, and people are mutating, not zombies, but you got clickers, and then you got regular mutated people that have been affected by this fungus. And it the only thing that made this game fantastic was the storytelling and the bond that you built with Ellie as you were exploring. You started off as this hard cut guy that give really two shits less about what really happened. He just wanted to get his job done, and then you turned and you mutated slowly into this father figure for her. and that was beautiful storytelling. But if you try to just throw it out there, say, hey, they had a falling out, okay, cool, go on with life. Now you're doing this. I'm not okay with that, and I will rate this game a garbage 100% through and through. That's the way that they're going to present it to me in the very beginning, because I want to live the experience like what I did in the first one. I don't want to just hear about it. I want to live it. And that's what really made this game, or The Last of Us, so good, was the fact that you weren't just told that something bad happened, you lived the something bad happened. Because you start off playing as his daughter, and then all of a sudden the daughter is now dead because you were trying to escape the city, and some soldier with that was being controlled by some twisted idiot told you to shoot him. That that was perfect. It was very well done. It was very well played out. You transition to playing Joel, you're running through the city, everything's going crazy. You get to the end and you finally think you're going to get out, and then your daughter ends up dying. You live it, you experience it firsthand. And if you try to force feed me the bullshit of, hey, while you were gone, they got into an argument and they're no longer a thing anymore. Now you're trying to, get away from Joel. No, I'm not okay with that. Not even in the slightest. I don't think the story writers will do that. I don't think the game development will do that. I don't think any of them will, stray away from what they've already started building on. But if they do, I'm gonna rate this game a garbage. Obviously, I will be playing this next month, or not next month, the month after next, after I finish up Resident Evil 3. So I will revise and revisit this situation afterward. But if they try to do that, I'm going to rate this game a garbage, because if you can't live the situation, then you're not going to get the same story experience that you did before, and it's going to make the game tank. What do you think, Hyperverse? Am I wrong, or am I just completely
that makes
right?
sense. I think I would prefer storytelling that way, um, instead of just like you said, like they just kind of tell you, oh hey, this person's not dead. Like, oh shit, that sucks. Now
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
But you might start to get attached to these characters, and then you suffer like the minor hiccups along the way, and then at the end you realize, well, fuck, this character that I was playing is gone now.
So
It's good.
yeah,
It's
so
better.
I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be friends with Joel the entire game. That's not what I'm saying at all. If like you're gonna be in the shoes of Ellie, you're gonna be playing as Ellie. That's everything that I've seen has pretty much confirmed that you're gonna be playing as Ellie. Um, all the gameplay footage that I've seen, you're gonna be playing as Ellie. You're gonna be, basically replacing Joel with Ellie, and that's how you're going to play. And you're going to be crafting and everything like you did before. You're going to be avoiding hostile enemies and fungal infected people and things like that. So that's all good. They're keeping the foundation, which is fantastic. But if they start the game off like you make it like a 15 segment or 15-minute segment where you're playing as Joel, throw everybody off and play as Joel, and then all of a sudden you say something, or you confide or confess that you've lied, and make that the falling out, that's fine. But if you try to force feed me the shit that they're going to be like, yeah, they just got into an argument about the fact that she found out he lied, get the hell out of here. I won't play it. I'll play it for my channel, but I'm not going to enjoy it. But yeah, it's one of those things, like, you have to stay consistent with the storytelling, because that's what made this game so good, was the story. And I'm optimistically rating this game a game, because there is a whole lot of, you can't ever beat the first with a sequel. You can't. It's impossible. Because the first is what gave you that impression, and there's no you can't trump your first impression. Let's put it that way. And this game will be heavily dependent on how they place the story, because if they try to make it some arbitrary thing where you're running away from this people because yes, then it's going to be weird, and it's just going to be awkward, and the story's not going to line up, and it's just going to be bad. So I want them to keep the same standard that they had with The Last of Us originally, because that game was fantastic. And the game has been in development for 4 years, so I hope that they get it right.
Yeah, they've had the time.
Exactly, and that's a big factor for any AAA game company. Let's be completely honest here. That's 100% a factor for any AAA game company is time. If with the deadlines and stuff that are put on AAA companies, it makes it so hard for them to develop good, consistent things. Like one of the things that's said heavily in the industry is save it for the sequel. Well, if the sequel doesn't have it, then what are you going to save it for? The next sequel, and yada yada yada, and you keep pushing things back, and then you have to cut things out because you have to push out a game at a year mark no matter what. Because you start losing money. Let's be honest here. You lose money if you don't. And the if with them not having the constraint of time, I mean, Naughty Dog has released so much good stuff. Like they've released the trilogies for Spyro and Crash Bandicoot and things like that. And that's going to keep them fueled for them to actually release their big ticket item, which is The Last of Us Part 2. And them pushing it back is a good sign that they're taking their time. And a lot of people hate when things get pushed back, but they need that time to make sure that it's correct. And I don't actually hate it. I want them to take the time. If they have to push it back next month, do it. I'll wait and I will enjoy what they produce. And they might actually push, if they push it back next month, they're going to push it back to the PlayStation 5 and PC. I don't know if they're releasing it for Xbox. I didn't actually look into that. But yeah, it's one of those things where I would rather them take the time. No, they're not even releasing it for PC. It's just going to be another PlayStation 4 exclusive. Love it. PlayStation 4 for life, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
PC.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, I couldn't live without my computer. But yeah, again, if they I'm going to rate this a game based off of their history, but if they try to change drastically how stories are told in this game, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be like garbage, stamp it garbage, throw it in the trash. I don't care.
Throw it in the garbage.
I
How'd you
will
mess it up?
and I will sit here and I will let you guys try to destroy me in the chat. I don't care because it will be that point where it's just like you took the best part of a game and you threw it out. Like you just took it and threw it out and just assumed that people were going to be okay with it, and that is not okay. So, optimistically a game, but I'm kind of skeptical on what they're going to do with the storytelling. I think that the writers will keep their head on their shoulders and let it become what it's supposed to be, but we'll see. Do you have anything to input on that? I know I talked a lot during that segment because
I mean, you know a lot more about the series than me. From what I've seen, it looks like a game it's intriguing me. I generally don't play games that are like just story driven. Well, I guess I won't say just, but if you're just playing and you're beating like a campaign of something, I generally don't play those kind of games. But seeing that it's got the combat and the like on the fly crafting, that intrigues me. But I also don't generally go for horror games, so it looks good, but I don't know if I'm personally gonna play it.
Oh my god, my dogs are going crazy. Sorry about the barking in the background, but yeah, no. If you don't want to play it, check it out on my channel. Obviously, we're both subscribed to each other, but check it out on my channel. And if it is something that intrigues you, pick it up. So there's a lot of times where we're talking about our other channels. I play a lot of games on my other channel, but people have to understand that I work a 40-hour work week, sometimes more, and I'm school full time, and I only have free time on the weekends. Same thing with Hyperverse. Me and him are both going to school for game design. So we're full time school, full time work, and we work in the same spot. So I know his work schedule. So if we don't upload at your rate that you want, I'm sorry, but it's unchangeable. Sunday is our only free time to do the podcast, and it gives us a week to research some things and figure out what we really want to talk about, things that we're passionate about. And The Last of Us Part 2 and Half-Life Alyx are two games that I'm actually very passionate about. But I really am skeptical about The Last of Us Part 2 because they have such a big pair of shoes to fill. I hope they do it, but they do have such a big pair of shoes to fill. And I optimistically rating it a game based off of their history. And I mean, they can't really, they can't really mess up the mechanics that they've already implemented because they were fantastic in the beginning. Simple yet elegant. The easiest way to put it. They weren't complex in any way, shape, or form. Find these parts, put them together. You got this. Cool. And then you unlock more stuff to keep you interested in, different ways to approach situations, things like that. But, again, Hyperverse brings up good points. Like it's a game that catches your eye, but if you don't know if it's something that you want to play, just check it out on my channel. I'll be streaming it as much as I possibly can as soon as it releases. Same thing with Resident Evil 3. And any game that we talk about, we'll most likely end up playing it. If you want to,
I'm going for that Animal Crossing.
I was about to say, if you want to check out Animal Crossing, as soon as it releases in 5 days, it'll start popping up on Hyperverse. I personally will probably not play it. It's just not my cup of tea, and I don't have a Nintendo Switch to play it on anyway. So check it out on check it out on Hyperverse's channel. He uploads a lot of these games that I don't play, so dynamic duo, right? Yeah. But let's segue into Half-Life Alyx. This game, I'm not even going to call it Half-Life 3 because it's really just Half-Life 1.5. In my opinion, because it's something that I don't know if I fully agree with. And Half-Life is a very unique game. You got head crabs and zombie-ish like enemies and things like that, and just weird creatures, the gravity gun, the stranger. You got all those weird concepts in this game, but it made it a very fantastic game, and it did have a really good story behind it. I do have to be very skeptical about this game because it is releasing only for VR.
Yep.
and that's a good idea, but they're not even going to support a standard mouse and keyboard setup or controller setup like what they did with Half-Life 1 and 2. And I honestly think that's a very stupid idea because I don't have time to sit down and play VR games like I used to. I mean, I've got a VR headset and it's compatible with it, and I'm glad that they're making it compatible for most VR headsets that hook up to a computer, but that just took out a large amount of the people that can play this game. Now, on the other hand, them building a solely dedicated VR game is cool, and I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, they're using everything and anything they can, like fully porting like what you would do on a mouse and keyboard into VR, like from the ground up. It's not just like an afterthought.
Yeah, and I mean that's the same thing that they did with Boneworks, and Boneworks was a fantastic game.
Oh yeah, they were trying to make something that the world wasn't ready for.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%, and they did a good job with it.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, let's look at like if you compare the same kind of concept or same kind of thought processes to what they did with the Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. That's a fantastic game specifically for VR only. And I'm cool with it. It's just one of those things where is it really going to hit that large of a player base? I don't have time to sit down and play Half-Life, to be honest with you. So this one will not show up on my channel. It might show up on Hyperverse's channel. I'm not exactly sure. That's up to him to decide. But I don't have the free time to sit down and, well, I guess stand there and play a Half-Life game. I don't. So I can't sit here and tell you I'm going to put it on my channel. I will if I get the time, but I doubt I'll have the time. So is it a good idea to make a game specifically for VR, with VR being so shallow in the player pool?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if it were a Half-Life 3, like if it were a brand new after what we've already seen installment, it could be something that would definitely boost sales and get more people into VR. Because it's been memed for years that Half-Life 3 confirmed. And now that they're giving us something that they're like, hey,
Well,
we're finally looking back into Half-Life. It might get people's hopes up
right,
in
and
a weird way.
and I read into the development of that, and this is Half-Life 3. I'm calling it Half-Life 1.5 because it takes place in between Half-Life 1 and 2. So you're backtracking, and it's kind of a middle prequel, I guess. I don't really know, but
Yeah, it's weird.
they're filling in the gap. But I think it's actually going to break it a little bit because they're introducing things that were, I guess, more advanced than what was in Half-Life 2. They, instead of having the gravity gun, you have gravity gloves, to play for the VR, things like that, and changes. And Half-Life 3 never got forgot about. The development team constantly, so Valve constantly kept thinking about how they were going to continue it on and things like that. And then VR came out and it added a new, variable to the mix of what they're talking about, things like that. And I'm glad that they are dedicating to one specific setup, but I don't know if it's going to be a good specific setup because if there isn't enough people that go in and go to play Half-Life Alyx, they're not going to continue the series that they've created with this game. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate that there's a third one coming out because I really want more of the story. And I wouldn't mind having the middle ground between Half-Life 1 and 2 filled in a little bit because there was a lot of open holes. But I don't know if this is the way to do it. It's it's hard to sit here and say that it's going to be good if I don't know. I don't know if I can rate this game or garbage because there's just not, it's just such a new concept to be able to produce in solely VR. I mean, look at the game list, the game pool that's only produced solely in VR. You've
Yeah,
got,
there's not a really
yeah,
like a high number of heavy hitters on that list.
right. And I mean, you got Beat Saber. Obviously, that one was a pretty easy
Right.
one to develop. It's just cut blocks, and then you got Arkanoid, which not even there's not even a whole lot of people that know about Arkanoid because it's Beat Saber with guns essentially. And then you've got
Raw data.
yeah, you do have
That one's pretty fun.
yeah, you do have raw data, and then you've got the two other heavy hitters, which is the Walking Dead Sinners and Saints and Sinners, and then you've got um, Boneworks, and that's really the
Mhm.
only ones that you really hear about because it's so skeptical because there's not very many people out there that have a VR headset. They are more accessible because they're not so expensive nowadays, but it's not just the price that makes it to where people don't buy them. It's the physical space that they have to use them, the computer capabilities. If they have PlayStation 4, that limits them down to what they can play, things like that. Like there is so much that is involved with virtual reality that if with Valve going to Half-Life Alyx being on virtual reality only, is that really the smartest choice to get this game to where it's going to be hit by the most people to continue the franchise?
I don't know.
I
It's a strange one.
I
No
don't
one expected this.
I don't think so. I really don't. And I'm looking at it as a, just, sales to player ratio. They're going to sell it and players are going to buy it. The hardcore Half-Life fans are probably going to buy it. And I will probably buy it a few years down the road, not anytime soon, but I don't think it's going to get enough sales for them to continue it on. And that's a problem. This one has nothing to do with the game mechanics or anything like that because VR game mechanics are so hard to discuss and say, yeah, that's a fantastic mechanic or no, it's not because VR is new.
Yeah.
It's been out for years. I think the first VR released what 6 years ago,
Yeah, sounds
2014.
about right.
6 years ago is what I'm wanting to say. The VR's been out for years, but it's not. Look at the gaming industry versus like basic mouse and keyboard setup when you were loading things in on DOS compared to what it is now. And then look at the way that VR is. VR is still a baby setup. It's very much in its, very infantile state. And maybe they're pulling the trigger on this setup too quickly. And I think it's going to end up hurting it in the long run because of the fact that not very many people are going to be able to get it. Now, if it's a sit down and play VR, that will kind of eliminate some of the variables that come into play when developing a VR game itself, but it's also going to take away from the VR experience because I don't want to have to.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit down and play a VR. You'd be back to the what was that stupid Game Boy that they released? The Virtual Boy. You'd be back to that kind of setup where you're sitting there with your face in a mask and playing a game. So yeah. So the Virtual Boy, I actually played a lot of time into that, but that's just me. I'm a nerd. So, but the expected release, if you guys are curious about this game, because there's a huge fan base behind Half-Life Alyx already. It's ridiculous, but March 23rd, 2020. So it's right around the corner. I think it's what, 8 days away. So yeah, it's 8 days away. So it'll be releasing very soon. And no, I will not be playing this one on my channel. And I don't know, Hyperverse, are you? I know you're pretty heavy into putting VR games on your channel.
Yeah, I mean, I like VR, but I feel like I couldn't play that unless I go back and I play the first one.
Yeah, and that poses another thing: is it going to tie very well into the story? I mean, it's it should be its own thing. 100% through and through, it should be its own thing. I honestly think that if they were going to make a Half-Life game, they shouldn't have tied a Half-Life VR game into the storyline for Half-Life. They should have left it the way it was, where it was mouse and keyboard or controller. Because it's going to break your immersion in that story. VR is immersive, but the story will be broken, in my opinion.
Although, the one positive thing, because it has been like confirmed in both this game and in Portal that they have been like the universe is the same, with
Right.
the Borealis being like moved over, and we've had hints and we know that they're in the same universe. This at least opens the door potentially to give us something Portal related in VR, which I think can work very well. I know it's completely separate. That's the only positive I'm seeing right now because I'm not super into Half-Life.
Yeah,
Because
and
the only thing we got was the lab, quote unquote. It's like the little VR testing room, which is like an aperture science kind of thing, just for you to like play around in little VR things. And that's not Portal.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know. This game is so hard to rate. I kind of want to leave this one up to the comments below. Let us know what you think, because I I can't really rate this game or garbage because they've got a good premise behind it, but is it going to break the story of what Half-Life is? Maybe. Or is it going to tie perfectly well and you're just going to be playing it in first person, VR? Maybe. I don't know. I really can't tell you. With them focusing solely on VR and only producing for VR, that gives them a leg up to make a phenomenal VR game. But on the other hand, Half-Life didn't start out as VR, and you need to make an entirely separate Half-Life for that to happen. If they would have continued on the series and went to Half-Life 3 after Half-Life 2, then yes, I'd be 100% down saying that this is a game because it's a completely new experience for everybody. But since they decided to put this one in the middle of two pre-existing games, it's going to be kind of hard to tie it in because you're going to be experiencing something completely different, but in
Yeah.
between the other two experiences. So it's weird. I I don't know. It's so hard to tell. Like,
Yeah, it's weird. It'll be jarring.
yeah, and I mean, let me read over some excerpts that I was interested in. let's see. So in 2015, Valve began work on the electronics company HTC, which, Valve did develop HTC Vive, my bad. They they did develop it, and so they do have a working knowledge of the virtual reality system, and they have the Source 2 engine, which that engine is extremely well versed for VR specifically. So it's not bad. And I mean, I think they're trying to get their like name out because they're even in some of the things that I've read about, they're calling it a very ambitious step for a AAA game. So we haven't received a AAA VR game. I don't think The Walking Dead Sinners and Saints was a AAA produced game. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that
I
up.
don't think so. I really don't think we've had this level of production put into a VR game. The closest thing would be like Boneworks, but
Now,
they went from the ground up and they're like a lesser known
right.
company.
And now when you say this amount of production, now let's just be frank here. They don't have that many people working on it. There's 80
Right.
people. There's 80 people developing this game, which that is a lot. You only need 4 people if you want to go with the utmost bare bones. You need art, story writer, game designer, programmer. Complete bare bones, but you have to have somebody to guide and have the vision and things like that to help you get through what they're trying to produce. But 80 people working on this doesn't seem like a whole lot. When people look at it, they're gonna be like, "Well, only 80 people developed this, and it's fantastic." But that's not really a leg to stand on. They're trying to create a AAA production game that might break the story and might break the series in multiple ways than one. So the gravity gun was a huge, like, everybody loved to use the gravity gun because you got to move things and throw them, and you grab head crabs and shoot them across the platform, things like that. So the gravity gun was fantastic. But changing that to a completely different mechanic where you're using the gravity gloves, well, that doesn't really tie in too well. And I mean, like I said, this would be perfectly fine if it wasn't in between 2 games. I I don't know how else to put it. It's such a hard game to rate. So yeah, what do you think? Should we leave it up to people in the comments?
That sounds fine. We don't have a whole lot. Like, I've only seen one trailer. I can't really find images. It's very surprising how locked down they've been and we're this close to release.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the same thing that they did with Death Stranding, and I could go on for hours about how Death Stranding was horrible. So, but and I'm gonna catch some flack about that one. I already know that one, but Death Stranding was horrible, and I don't know. Yeah, there's just so much wrong with that game. But this one is one of those things where it's just if you look at just Half Life Alyx, you could easily rate it a game because they've got their focuses in the right spot. But if you look at Half Life Alyx and Half Life 1 and 2, then it kind of turns things on its head, and it doesn't exactly play in well, in my opinion. And I think that they should have went from making a 1.5 to making a solid 3, because then it would be completely different to rate it. But with them,
Yeah, it would make sense with advancing technology that this would be a possible outcome.
exactly, and that's one of my things that I really don't understand on why they went with this, because it's going to break so much of the story itself, and the game by itself will probably be fantastic. Valve doesn't really produce that bad of games in any way,
Yeah,
shape, or
I'd
form.
agree with that. By itself, it's I would say game, but I don't know.
Yeah, but you had like now they've thrown in something completely different in the middle of 2 games. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I understand that those games were developed when we didn't have the technologies that we have now, but that's not an excuse for you to break that story so bad. And I mean, if you read over the development cycle of what they were going through with developing a new Half-Life, they were back and forth and arguing and kept running into different issues and couldn't come to a complete decision. And with this one, they were like, "Yes, this is the way we want to go," which is great. That means that they're all unified and they're all going to be focusing on making this a fantastic game. but I would make it a fantastic standalone, not not an in between, because I don't know, it's so hard to tell what's going to actually happen. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna leave it up to the comments. I can't really rate this one. This is where our viewers come in, and I saw that we got a lot of viewers on the last one. So if we don't get a lot of comments on this one, I'm gonna be upset. But I want to know, and then we will bring this game back up next week when we talk about the next 3 installments, which we haven't decided on yet. So can't look ahead. But this one is so hard for us to judge. By itself, I could easily call it a game because the way that they're approaching it, making it solely focused, the mechanics that they're putting in, making everything solid around the VR experience itself, not catering to multiple sides. It's a very big benefactor. But as a installment in the middle of 2 games, I don't know. It it's so hard to say because is it going to break the story? Maybe. Is it not going to break the story and tie in perfectly? Maybe. I don't know. So this one is going to be up to the comments. Leave your comments in the below section and we will read through them and we will we will definitely come back to this next week because there's just so much that could happen with this. And I don't know. What do you think, Hyperverse is? Am I stupid for overthinking this?
No, I get exactly what you're saying. It's a weird situation. We don't have too long to figure out, how the outcome's going to be. But yeah, I'll say alone, it's probably going to be great.
Yeah.
I just don't know what it's going to do to the Half-Life name.
I don't know. I really wish they wouldn't have put it in the middle because then it would have been easily a game. And I mean, everybody people have been looking forward to this game so long, and that right there, you're going to be generating a hype that just
I'm worried about the expectations.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't 100% was not even expecting anywhere near a VR game. So they've already shattered my expectations and they've gone to a completely different direction than what I was expecting. But I don't know. I hope that we can come back and rate it a game. I hope. I'm going to be watching gameplay on it and getting backstory and all that fun stuff and seeing if it ties in, and I'll come back and I'll give you guys a better estimation as to what it is or what it isn't. I don't know. But we're going to leave this one up to you guys. Let us know what you think. Give us your ideas. Leave them 800-mile long comments because I really do like reading through them. Just don't make it stupid. If you disagree with anything that we've said in this, please feel free. It really won't bother me if you guys call us idiots. I have an emotional husk, so you're not going to hurt my feelings any. I don't know about Hyperverse. He might cry a little bit.
Not too much.
Just a little bit. He's the emotional one in the group. But next week, I am expecting a guest appearance. So we'll be talking about one particular game that I do know we will be talking about is Doom Eternal. Because I really want to talk about that game myself. And, we might bring in some other, we'll probably talk about some other games that have already been released because this week we focus solely on games that are coming out relatively soon. And I hope you guys really do enjoy this podcast because we are going to do this whether or not we get viewers or not because I like to talk. And if you guys out there have opinions, comments, questions, concerns, whatever, you can put it in our channel discussion board or you can leave it in the comments below. I check it whenever I get a chance. I don't always have time to check these things, but we will be looking over and seeing what the consensus is of if this is going to be a game or if it's garbage. So Half-Life Alyx is your guys' homework. Figure out if it's going to be a game or garbage. But we are officially over time once again. We might, Hyperverse, we might actually have to extend these out to 2 hours.
Jeez, that's a long time.
Yeah, but I mean, we're already hitting an hour and a half, so let us know if you want longer episodes as well, and we can probably come up with something for that. So, until next time, please leave your comments below, and if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever we're live and whenever we upload videos. But we might be expanding this channel. We haven't fully come to a decision yet. We might be expanding this channel where we showcase some games that we really have interested in, or we might showcase some games where they're complete garbage. Just so you guys can get a feel for what we rate on. Because we don't really have a syllabus that says this has to meet this standard, this standard, this standard. We take them case by case, and we really want to get your guys' input and opinion and showcase some of the things that we're talking about with why they're bad. If you're curious, currently I am playing Chernobyl Light on my channel. Hyperverse, are you playing anything on yours right now?
No, I'm probably going to pick up Pokemon some more. And then, of course, Animal Crossing.
Okay, so yeah, keep an eye out for some Pokemon uploads on Hyperverse, and obviously he's gonna be playing Animal Crossing, so keep an eye out for that. And then when Resident Evil 3 hits, yeah, keep your eye out for that one as well, because I'll be playing that one like I'm a little schoolgirl and can't get enough. But until next time, guys, we will see you all later. Say bye, Hyperverse.
Bye, Hyperverse.